Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in today, and welcome to the virtual orientation for Penn families and parents. We're just gonna wait a couple more minutes for people to join in, but we can get started. My name is Alex Yu, and I serve as the Assistant Director for Communication and Events in the Office of New Student Orientation and Academic Initiatives. On behalf of our office, I would like to thank you for joining us today, and most importantly, congratulate you and your student on becoming part of the Penn community. We know that the transition to college is an exciting time, but it can also sometimes come with many questions. So not only for students, but for their families as well. This is why Penn offers this summer virtual orientation series for families and parents. So these sessions are designed to help you become more familiar with the university, connect directly with the departments, and support students better, and also to understand the resources available throughout your students' Penn journey. So today's session will focus on wellness and safe living. Our presenters will provide an overview about important information that you need to know. During the presentation, please feel free to submit your questions using the Zoom Q&A features. Our Q&A moderators will review the questions and they will address as many as time allows during the session. Please note that the questions involving personal or student-specific questions may need to be addressed privately after the session. This session is also being recorded, and we'll be posting this recording on NSOAI's Penn Parents and Families webpage after the session concludes. So with that, I'm pleased to turn this session over to Kathleen Shield Anderson, the Vice President for Public Safety, and Dr. Benoit Dubé, Chef Wellness Officer.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us for this special conversation of the New Student Orientation Penn Parent Edition. My name is Dr. Benoit Dubé. I'm the university's Chief Wellness Officer, and I'm joined today by Kathleen Shields Anderson, who's Vice President for Public Safety. And today there's lots to talk about, and we're going to focus on two pillars of the new student experience, and that is wellness and safety.
So we know that sending your student to college is both exciting and can provoke some anxiety. So we kind of want to talk to you today for both you as parents and for the student themselves to provide some insight into the many ways both our teams and other teams support your student while they're here at Penn, making sure they feel safe, that supported and empowered as they start this new chapter of their life.
And the reason we're here together today is because this is a collaborative effort. Wellness and safety go hand in hand, and they create synergies. They don't happen in a vacuum, and they're always a success for our students because we work together as partners.
Absolutely.
Why don't we start from the beginning?
That sounds great. So, Benoit, as you kind of think about students first arriving to campus, students have already heard, I believe at this point, from wellness about insurance, immunization requirements. What's your bit of advice to the families to make sure that everything is in order before they actually set foot on campus?
That's great. Let's set everybody up for success. Let's talk about insurance and immunization requirements. First, why do we have this? It's guided by the simple principle that we want to make sure that there are the fewest impediments to students' academic journey. What that means is we want to make sure that they're protected against communicable diseases, hence the immunization requirements, and also have access to health care close to our campus should they require additional health care beyond what we can provide on campus without needing to travel out of town so that they can continue on their academic journey. That's why these requirements are in place. So to answer your question, three things. First, students should activate PennChart. Once they activate their account, they'll be able to send us their immunization records so that we can then indicate they've satisfied the requirements. The second element is to tackle the issue of PSIP. PSIP is the Penn Student Insurance Plan, and this is an opt-out process. Students do not have to enroll in PSIP, They can. This is a plan that is tailor-made for our students. However, students may want to be on a different plan or continue to be on their parents' plan. They just need to let us know by August 31st. They don't need to have our decision by August 31st. They just need to let us know they would like to opt out. If we do not hear from students by August 31st, they will automatically be enrolled in PSIP. Okay, so 1, Penn chart, 2, PSIP, and 3, just some very practical things. Make sure to save 215-746-WELL. That's 215-746-9355 in their smartphones. That applies to students and parents and families. That is the gateway to everything we do, whether it's medical care, health promotion, immunization navigation for requirements. That phone number is the central number to everything we do.
So as the families are preparing to send their students, many are understandably focused in on how their students are going to settle in when they arrive, both emotionally, socially, logistically, which is usually my department. What key wellness resources should they be aware of as being available to their students from day one?
It's important for me to really drive home the point that Penn as an institution takes a really fully integrated approach when it comes to wellness, recognizing that wellness is foundational to academic success. That's where we position this important priority for us as an institution. From the very, very beginning, we want students to have access to peer wellness coaching, to group therapy, to public health guidance. They also have 24/7 access to medical and counseling support services. Wellness is foundational for their academic success. We take this very seriously, and we have all these resources available to students and families. Taking a holistic approach means that we acknowledge that for many students, this is also their first time in an urban environment.
Sure. That sounds like a lot for you to accomplish.
It is a lot, and we don't do it by ourselves. We strive to create a community of care where wellness as an organization is both a hub for clinical care, but it's also a campus-wide catalyst for community well-being. We partner with many departments, public safety being one of them, and departments that span the entire university, from student life to housing to athletics. We work together for shared workshops, for example. We do scooter safety in collaboration with public safety, right?
Thank you.
We have proactive outreach, and the goal here that underlines all of this is really to make wellness everybody's business. It's our organization, but it's a shared responsibility across the university. And just to reiterate, public safety is one of our favorite partners. I'm sorry, other partners. We do a lot together because we build on one another's resources, correct? Now, we mentioned students being in an urban environment for the first time. How do you help students and their families make sure they feel safe?
Yeah. So Benoit you hear me say this all the time, safety is a feeling. And we know, to steal a phrase I learned from you, right, we want to meet students and families where they are when they arrive. Some are coming from other big cities. Some are coming from cornfields in Iowa. Some are coming from halfway across the world, right? And so depending on what makes you feel safe, right, we want to make sure that you have that same feeling here. And so we kind of cover your physical security while they're here. So we base this on, to play upon something you said, Benoit, as it being a shared responsibility. We also believe that safety is all about relationships. And so a big part of what we do is through community engagement. And of course, having a visible presence, right? That's one of the basic things that makes people feel safe. Knowing that there are people there who you can see as you walk out of your room every day, who are there for your safety. So what I'll say to you is we have 24/7 coverage, both by our Penn Police Department. We are a fully accredited, sworn police department who patrol the entire area where these students are going to live, work, study, and have a full college experience. And we also supplement that with additional allied security officers. So they're going to see an allied security officer when they get up to go to class in the morning in the lobby of their building, and they'll be waving them goodnight when they come back at the end of the day. But we engage with students, make sure that we're answering their questions, make sure to help them feel secure and welcome them right away. But it's all about relationship building and meeting people where they are.
Could I ask you a question? You said fully accredited police.
Yeah.
But doesn't Philadelphia have a fully accredited police force?
Philadelphia does. There is the Philadelphia Police Department. And then the university back in the 1960s wanted to kind of add to the feeling of safety on campus. I think a lot of campuses that exist out there do have a security department, but the university seeks to kind of provide a higher level of care. By creating our own police department, we can be more responsive to the specific needs of our community, right? That's our faculty, our staff, our students, as well as the West Philadelphia community. I think that's a really important part of our mission, to make sure that all feel safe and secure and can focus on the unique issues that are a part of our area, whether that be traffic crossings and major events that students will attend, like the Spring Fling concert or our Penn relays, or more importantly, in 4 years, what everybody's going to celebrate, which is commencement, right? So we can respond to those large events, as well as respond to the specific needs around crime and safety and things like that. That's kind of our approach towards public safety. I like to kind of tongue-in-cheek say, Penn Public Safety, we're more than just police. Because it takes, as you're highlighting and how we've highlighted before, a lot of partnership and the ability to think a little bit differently about safety so that we can best serve our students, which is why we're all here to begin with.
So that means that since Penn Police knows about campus life and the ebb and flow of student activities, Penn Police they're better trained to interact with students. Is that fair?
I think that's a fair statement, and I think we're able to focus our officers, to your point, on the specific needs of people going through this transition in their life, right? Whether that be living on their own for the first time and remembering simple things like, locking your doors, or it's something bigger, right? Like as you do, teach them to navigate, the healthcare system. These are all big changes, and we try to customize it in a way that's more responsive to students as they go through this part of their life and start to establish that feeling of independence. We try to help them through those kind of major life changes. So we spend a lot of time on training. We work with your team on mental health training. We work with the Office of International Students and Scholars to talk about the international student experience. We have the ability to kind of make our police department more responsive to the needs of this community.
That's great.
Yeah, thanks.
I don't think I knew some of that stuff you just said. That's really nice. There's a T-shirt in there somewhere.
There is a T-shirt in there. So can I ask you, once they settle in and they start talking, we were kind of talking about this, some of the basic things you learn when you first go out on your own, how to navigate health insurance or making doctor's appointments on your own, things like this. But as students settle in and begin to face the normal ups and downs of college life too, right? The social change, the academic challenges. Mental health is understandably top of mind for a lot of families. This is a major adjustment. Can you walk us through the counseling services available to students, including how they can access support, both in person, as we're sitting right now in your space in wellness at 3535 Market Street, but also virtually? We know that students in this generation are multimodal. So can you talk a little bit about kind of what resources are available for mental health?
Absolutely. But before we talk about that, I think we need to talk about students first. What you highlighted is critical. it's important to acknowledge that this arrival to campus is a really important transition. And that means that a student will get here and they were a big fish in a small pond, and then they're going to be a minnow in the ocean. Right? And students will experience this differently, but they will figure it out. They will find their way, and they will be able to thrive. That is the traditional trajectory of our students. Our students are highly resilient. They can bounce back. They're very eager. And we know this from decades of data. And what it also means is that we need to be able to support them. We need to take a proactive approach. We need to take a preventative approach to kind of hold their hand as they're figuring this out. We don't want them to do this on their own. They can. But if they're not sure, we want them to have access to prevention and support. I mentioned briefly the peer coaching program is a great example of how, well, you're not quite sure, you think you're there, you don't want to really reach out to the administration or the school. That's why we have peer-based prevention, right? Our peer wellness coaching program, I think, is the best example of how we want to help people find their way, because we know they will land well. The other thing is we have workshops all the time. Maybe it's knowledge deficits. Maybe you need to learn some new things. So we have workshops on sleep hygiene. Like it's I think most of the parents listening and the families know that sleep for young people is kind of at a deficit because there's this fear of missing out on things and wanting to do more. Well, this is not compatible with academic success, and people quickly learn about this. So we have these workshops on sleep hygiene. It's evidence-based, it's effective, and that's available to people who want it. We also have workshops on imposter syndrome, on sexual health, and these are just a few. We also have supports in place for people who come to campus knowing that they've struggled with substances in the past. The SUPER program, the Substance Use Prevention, Education, and Recovery program, is there not only to provide a community of support for individuals in recovery, but also to serve as a resource as young people navigate their relationships with substances, because this may be their first exposure, first attempt while they're here on campus. However, while I'm painting a very optimistic and uplifting picture of our students, I do want to reinforce that when students can't bounce back and when they are overwhelmed, we are there. They have access to group therapy, they have access to individual therapy, they have access to virtual teletherapy through a partnership with Mantra Health, and that is entirely included in the cost of attendance when students join the Quaker community. Best way to find access to these services is to call 215-746. That is the portal to all of these resources.
So if a student is struggling, whether it's with academics, social adjustment, or mental health, and does not reach out for help, what happens then?
So I'm glad that you asked that question. We are very, very intentional about having multiple access points. So I rattled off a lot of forms of therapy just now, but I want to expand a little bit, because therapy is not just accessible at our counseling site, which is 3624 Market, which is just across the street from us. It's also accessible in some schools and in many campus buildings. For example, we have a program called Let's Talk. And Let's Talk is essentially counseling on campus. We bring trained counseling professionals to campus buildings on specific days and times. Our most popular site is the Van Pelt Library. And the reason we do this, do you? Do you? And if you're curious, it's the big building with the button. It is our most popular site, and we think that students go there because if they fear being discovered or unmasked as reaching out for help, maybe that's a barrier for them to come see us at 3624. That's why we bring counseling resources to the library, for example. That is the intentionality of making sure that we are available at different places. meeting students where they are when they need us. So again, they can come to 3624, they can go to Van Pelt or other sites through Let's Talk. They can, on their own, on their smartphone, reach out to Mantra Health and schedule teletherapy. That is how we try to maximize our ability to find students who are struggling. Exactly to your point.
To highlight something too that you and I talk a lot about is there are so many resources on this campus, and sometimes if they don't even know where to start, right? It's with that wellness number or a number that we've partnered on, which is 215-898-HELP. And at that point, whether it's with connecting them directly back over to wellness or with another resource, we try to make it as simple. I think the theme throughout this today is there are a lot of support resources, and we're also here to help you navigate them. I would just add that.
And I think now that there's a second phone number in your phone, it means that if a parent or a student calls 898-HELP, the dispatcher, the person who answers the phone, is able to connect them with the right resource. It is a community of care. It is our job to find out how to help students. It is not necessarily students' sole responsibility to figure out where to go. We will help them. And to that point, we've actually trained thousands and thousands of students, faculty, and staff in a program called iCare.
Okay. We've done it at Public Safety.
Yep.
It's a great program.
And so it's not an Apple product. It's basically active listening training, so that whether it's the instructor in the classroom or the resident advisor who notices that a student appears stressed out, no one feels scared to simply listen. We offer practical tips and tricks on how to go about it, and most importantly, how to elevate when needed so that we can connect the student with the appropriate resource. So the intentionality that I mentioned earlier is not only about having professionally trained counseling staff, which is important, obviously, but it's making sure that we have an army of wellness warriors, of ambassadors who create a safety net, so that wherever students are, there is someone that we have partnered with that can bring them in if needed.
Back to that shared responsibility. Right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Go back. Can you talk a little more? You talked a bit about those the sessions in Van Pelt. Are those by appointment or are they drop in? How do those work?
That's a great question. You just drop in. So no appointment, no commitment, no long paperwork. You just drop in, 30-minute appointments. And the nice thing about the Let's Talk program is that 2 out of 3 students who drop in for a session or for advice actually tell us ultimately that they don't need to make an appointment, that we were able to meet their needs in the moment. And I like to think of it as we prevented a spiraling from continuing to crescendo, and we were able to just put a lid on things and give students the tips and tricks, the resources and tools so that they can find the answers they need without needing to make an additional appointment.
That's fantastic. It's what they're meeting their need in that moment, right?
Correct.
That's great.
And as you said, that's at Van Pelt. That's our most popular site. But it's at the Penn Women's Center, the LGBT Center. There's various buildings that host our Let's Talk program. And we actually, based on utilization, will change the number of hours, the locations to meet student needs. But it reminds me, when I think of Van Pelt, the building with the button, Van Pelt has a lot of foot traffic, and not just during the day.
That is correct.
So I'm thinking, since I'm sitting here with you, I'm thinking students walk there or from there late at night. Can you tell us about the walking escort program? Because I have a vague recollection that that's one of the resources.
That's one of our most well-used resources. We have approximately 1,500 calls for walking escorts a month. So to talk about it a little bit more, as I said, kind of we have security officers who cover the entire 2.5 square mile area that is Penn's campus. So where our students are going to be. And of course, one of those places absolutely is Van Pelt, up until 3 o'clock in the morning, if you will. And so we want to make sure that if they're sitting there studying for that econ midterm, and they look up and it's 3 o'clock in the morning and they have to get back to their room, whether it's in Hill or the Quad or Lauder or Gutman College House, that they know they're not alone. So 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, they can call us at Public Safety and we will walk them with a security officer anywhere within our campus boundary. That boundary runs basically from the Schuylkill River, which is on the east end around 30th Street. So if some people come by train, that's by 30th Street Station is included in that, our Amtrak station, all the way up to 43rd Street.
Wow.
And then on the north end, Market Street or Presbyterian Hospital, Market Street, where your team, I know we do walking escorts for your team members too, if they're here for late night hours, which you also offer. And then all the way down to Baltimore Avenue, which is kind of where our Hospital University of Pennsylvania is, CHOP, and the Penn Museum and places like that. So anywhere within that area, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a
Wow.
year. We do not sleep. We do not go home. We are here all the time.
You're like the mailman.
Exactly. Neither rain nor wind. And all I have to do, I'm going to give them another number, and this is for any need. So that's 215-573-3333. Any emergency situation or anything like a walk on campus goes into our 24-hour a day, 7-day a week PennCom Center. We call it PennCom. It's our emergency communications center, where basically everything runs through this room. We are dispatching walking escorts. We are dispatching police. We are dispatching for medical emergencies as well, all through that room in that one number. So they can call that number and be dispatched. The other way we get requests for walking escort is through a service we offer called Penn Guardian. So Penn Guardian is an app. We have come into the app world at Public Safety. It's downloadable to their phone. It's the Guardian app, and there's more information on our website about it. So what Penn Guardian is an application that allows students to do a couple of things. One, to set up an individual profile. So they can include in the Penn Guardian app information that might be unique to them, right? So if they have a certain medical condition they want to make sure first responders are aware of, whether it be a bee allergy, right, or a heart condition, or a mobility challenge, they can put that information in the app. So if they ever do need to call Public Safety, when they call, and only when they call, we have access to that information. So again, we can meet the needs of that community member. So they sign up with their Penn email address. And what that also does, if they call us in an emergency, we're able to get their location. If you called 911, fun fact, right? If you ever looked at the bottom of your cell phone bill, there's a 911 charge. That is something that allows your local 911 center to get your location.
Okay.
If you call them, so they know exactly where to meet you if the line gets disconnected, or you're not able to communicate with the dispatcher verbally. As a private institution, we're not a part of the official 911 system. So by signing up for this application, we are also able to get their GPS location when and only when they call us. We don't have access. This is maintained by a third party. We're very attuned to privacy concerns, and we only have access to that information when someone calls us for help. So they can do that. They can order a walking escort. They can text with a dispatcher on that Penn Guardian app, whether that's because there's a challenge in terms of vocalization, right? Or they're in a space where they don't feel comfortable enough or safe enough to speak. They can use the app to text a dispatcher who will dispatch and respond to them just as if they were on the phone with the dispatcher at the time.
So now we're shifting into a little more like scary emergency-based territory.
I know.
Right? And so we've talked about resources
Yeah.
for mental health. I'm curious to learn more about what Penn and public safety specifically, what resources we have to support students who feel threatened or have experienced something threatening or traumatic or witnessed something traumatic.
Yeah. So we have a fully staffed support and advocacy unit at public safety. We call this unit the Special Services Unit. And this was actually my first introduction to public safety at Penn. Many years ago, before I came to Penn, I was a prosecutor for the city of Philadelphia. And my first interaction with Penn Public Safety was when I met an advocate for a victim of a crime who was affiliated with the university. And that advocate walked with that affiliate through the criminal justice process. And that's kind of the spirit in which special services lives. It doesn't have to be crime related, right? If you're experiencing a challenge, feeling unsafe, this unit's dedicated to support and advocacy. They are a confidential resource, and they are available 24 hours a day via telephone. They do many other things. They do options counseling. So if someone comes to them in a confidential manner and they're trying to determine where to go next, they'll talk to them about their resources, including their wellness resources. They'll connect them with wellness. They'll connect them with the chaplain's office. They'll connect the student or the community member with what they need at that time. We also talk a lot about safety planning. We had talked about, I think, when we first started chatting, about how people come from literally all over the world to the University of Pennsylvania. It's one of my favorite things about working here. So people come with different levels of safety planning and experience. And so we'll do a lot of things to talk to them about how to feel safe in certain situations, whether those are social situations, navigating relationships. And a lot of this in special services is done without having to file a police report. If they're not at that level, if they're not in that space, we're going to walk them through this process in a space where they feel comfortable. The other thing that office, as I mentioned, right, they provide accompaniment, whether it's if they're someone who has experienced a harm that rises to a criminal level, whether that's through the criminal justice process, taking them to court, meeting with people, and if as a part of that they've also, for example, experienced a harm, physical harm, and they need to get to doctor's appointments, right? We walk them through, and we will literally drive them to those appointments. Contact with police and safety concerns can be incredibly traumatic, and so we want to be able to have people navigate what could be a traumatizing time in the least difficult way process. We're there to walk with them through that, so that they never feel alone in whatever harm they've experienced. And again, right, I have to also say, while I live in this world, it is extremely rare that they will come in contact with these resources. Most of our students are going to come in contact with public safety because of the security officer who's walking them back from Van Pelt, right? Or the person saying hello to them at their college house. But we want to make sure, and I think that's the whole point of our conversation today, that parents and families are aware of these resources. In all likelihood, it is much more likely that a student will potentially get sick, whether that's with a cold, right, or come in contact with one of the many other resources at wellness. Do you want to?
So
back me up on that?
I can
Yes.
with numbers
Yeah.
too. So when we looked at last year, at the most recent academic year, we had just about 50,000 touch points with students. Now, I don't want parents to be alarmed. I'm talking about the entire Penn campus, not just the undergraduate class. Right? But that just confirms your suspicion that students and families are far more likely to interact with wellness than they are with public safety. And even though those contact points are far fewer with public safety or Penn Police, there's something very reassuring knowing that all those resources are there should they be needed. And I think we should, as an institution, we should be very proud of the high-touch environment that we have created for our students. So 50,000 touch points for wellness, what does that mean? So it really encompasses all clinical services. So students included in the cost of attendance can meet with our providers through student health and counseling. So what does that entail? It means primary care, reproductive health, LGBTQ affirming health, travel medicine, nutrition, sports medicine. All of these services are included in the cost of attendance, but it also means, as we've mentioned previously, having access to a therapist, having access to a psychiatrist for medication management. Again, all of it is accessible at no additional cost because it is included in the cost of attendance. I do want to ask you a question, though, and I'm sorry, I feel like I'm taking a step back, because you talked about emergencies and you walked us very deliberately about like the court system and all that stuff. But what about other kinds of emergencies, like a fire?
Sure.
More like acute events.
Yeah.
So how do we keep people aware? How do we keep them informed to avoid an area, for example, because there's been something bad on that street corner?
Yeah. So we have a mass emergency communication system. At Penn, we call it our UPenn alert system. And we send these messages out via text and email in real time to alert the entire community of any ongoing unsafe condition on campus. Whether that be being a native Philadelphian, I'm a little shocked to say this, whether that be a tornado warning, which we have not seen until recently, right? Or a crime that has occurred that is continues to be a threat to campus. We want our community to know that there is something that we're concerned about, and to share not only that it's going on, but to give them advice on what to do at that time, whether it be shelter in place or avoid the area. So it's to inform and advise. Students will register. They are required to register for this system on Path at Penn and should have received instructions over the summer on how to do that. They will add their cell phone number, and they are welcome to add their parents' or family member's cell phone number as well if they would like to sign up for these text messages if there's an ongoing emergency. And then in the event of an emergency, our PennCom Center, which again we talked about is 24/7, will send out an alert in those moments. I have to say, you know this, as Benoit and I went through managing kind of the university's response to COVID a few years ago. We also use the UPenn alert system for other important safety-related messages. And my favorite reason to use the UPenn alert system is for a suspension of campus operations, whether that is for snow, which does still happen in Philadelphia, or, for example, our football team, the Philadelphia Eagles, winning the Super Bowl, and therefore we are suspending operations because of the large event going on in campus. Personally, I've been honored enough to do it twice in my time at Penn, and I'm still proud of that.
So Kathleen, maybe we should do it again and you should talk about the Phillies, just to put it out in the universe.
I am with you. I was at a Phillies game last night, and
So was I.
dreaming of that again as well. Um, but but again, right, and the other thing, we talked a little bit about how your student can communicate with us via Penn Guardian. The most direct and most immediate way to communicate with us is through that phone number, 215-573-3333. This is our PennCom Center, again, 24/7. Reach us for any emergency, whether it's a crime-related emergency or a medical emergency. We also will coordinate with Philadelphia resources that include the Philadelphia Fire Department for any medical emergency as well. Talking about medical emergencies, parents may also be thinking about, well, what if my student has a medical emergency on campus, especially potentially one involving alcohol, right? This is a time of experimentation and learning your boundaries. How do we handle those?
As an institution, we're very proud to have a medical amnesty policy. This policy is set in place because it encourages students to seek help either for themselves or for somebody else without fear of any disciplinary action when the medical emergency involves alcohol. Now, while there's no disciplinary action, it does not mean there's not an opportunity for a conversation, for education, and for support. Again, the SUPER program is there, especially for these instances. SUPER is the Substance Use Prevention, Education, and Recovery Program. We have processes in place to help support students navigate beyond the medical emergency. And I think we should remember that as an institution of higher education, we create teachable moments, not just in the classroom, but outside of the classroom as well.
Yeah.
Once the medical emergency has been addressed, there's an opportunity for a conversation and I guess a growth mindset, right? What can we learn from this? How would we do things differently? That's how we approach emergencies that involve alcohol.
So that, of course, is going to lead me to to talk about our medical emergency response team. The MERT. Who are an amazing group of students on this campus. So our the MERT, as they are affectionately known, is an all-student-led group of EMTs who are dispatched by public safety for any medical emergency. So they partner with public safety, with police, so that if someone is experiencing a medical emergency, they call that number, 215-573-3333, and Penn Public Safety will dispatch the MERT students, the student EMT, along with a police officer from Penn Police, as well as a Philadelphia Fire medical emergency personnel. One of the things that we partnered with Wellness on and are very excited about, very proud of, is this low acuity step down unit called the Alternative Response Unit, or AR1 as it is affectionately known. So this was a partnership we had with Philadelphia Fire to dispatch an SUV instead of an ambulance when possible if a student needed a medical transport. So we use this unit on kind of high volume times. So weekend nights, it's Wednesday night through Saturday night. Wednesday night through Saturday night.
Okay.
In 10-hour shifts. So if that student, we'll say, has over imbibed, or what we often see is they twisted their ankle while playing pickup basketball at our Pottruck gym, that student EMT from MERT responds along with a Penn police officer, and then this low acuity unit, the AR1, will respond and assess whether or not it's appropriate to take that student to the hospital in an SUV. It lowers, in my opinion, and I don't know if you're seeing the same thing, kind of the social anxiety of being wheeled out of and being frankly embarrassed by that moment, by having being to be wheeled out in a gurney, if they can. It also lowers any concerns about the financial obligations, right? So you mentioned that all of your wellness resources here are free. That goes for all public safety resources as well. These are all free resources that are included in their cost of attendance. So we are taking the cost of that ride to the hospital, because we never want a student to not call and ask for help for themselves or for another for fear of discipline, right? Hence the medical or the alcohol amnesty policy, medical amnesty policy, or for financial reasons, right? I never want someone to feel like, gosh, I really need to get to the hospital, but the cost of an ambulance is a lot. So the university takes on that cost, and with that AR unit in those hours, if they need to get to the hospital, we're going to get them there, and they don't have to worry about paying for it.
But they have to be able to get in the SUV, right?
Correct.
So if we
Correct.
need an ambulance, we need an ambulance.
If we need an ambulance, we need an ambulance, and if that AR unit is in service, we're going to cover the cost of that ambulance.
Okay.
But the point in all this, is just a big part, as you know, of the public safety program, is to really empower students to make the right decision with as few barriers to entry as possible.
So to pick up on empowerment, does DPS have programs, resources, so that students can feel confident and prepared in managing their safety?
Absolutely. Safety, as I said, is a feeling, right? And safety is an individual choice. Only you can decide what makes you feel safe. So we try to a big part of our program, a lot of it through our special services department, along with our fire and emergency services department, and our police department. A lot of this is about education and training. So we do self-defense and empowerment classes that not only teach some of the basics in self-defense, traditional, how to throw a punch and how to defend yourself physically, but a big part of our program that we kind of developed here at Penn on our own is empowering people to make the choices that feel right to them, to make them feel safe, right? Whether that's crossing the street when they're feeling unsafe because the side of the street isn't well lit, or reminding them to take earbuds out when they're walking, right? So they can be alert and aware of their surroundings, right? We do a lot of that. We do that through these classes. We do a ton of safety workshops. Last year, our team presented to over 6,000 members of the Penn community. And we also have a lot of online resources. So our website is available. I encourage everybody to check it out. And if someone has a question, there are also kind of feedback portals and ways to submit, and we'll talk to everybody.
Speaking of online, Kathleen.
Yes.
So I think that students today, unlike their parents, spend a lot of time online, not just on the DPS website.
Yeah.
And have we found ways to provide them with tips and tricks to also protect their safety while they're online?
Absolutely, yes. We do see online harassment as well as cyberbullying, and we take that very seriously. And sometimes it might not rise to a criminal level, but these affect our students and our community members very deeply. And so we not only have an online reporting form for online harassment, right, where we'll take that in, work with other partner offices to do an investigation. But we're also spend a lot of time talking with people on how to protect themselves online, right? Whether that's educating people on best practices for their social media accounts. We take privacy very seriously, so helping them navigate their privacy skills, and tools as a member of the Penn community. Teaching, right, about what we would call responsible digital citizenship. But, right, students do face and are always going to face pressure, right? Not just academically, but socially as well. What do you think families can do to support their students through setbacks like a rejection from a social club or a roommate conflict? How do you help with that?
I think the best way to help students is to first acknowledge that this is part of the journey. Disappointments and
Yeah.
setbacks, they are going to happen. It's not a question of if, but it's a question of when and how often and what kind. It's part of the academic journey here, along with everything that's peripheral, like roommate issues and other non-academic pursuits. We have to recognize that not only these are common, but these are also opportunities for growth. We cannot control the events, but we can control how we think of them, the context or the meaning we attribute to them. And by offering our students a growth mindset, we are helping them take that very important first step. Now, seeking help should also be framed as strength and not weakness, right? So there's two parts to this equation, and Penn families, Penn parents can be our partners in helping us offer this positive and uplifting framework of growth and opportunity. So, of course, there's opportunities on campus. I've mentioned the peer wellness coaching, there's professional counseling services, but students should never feel that they're navigating this by themselves. They have residency or residential advisors, rather. There's faculty and staff, many of whom have taken the eye care training.
Yes.
And then all of our staff collectively, DPS or wellness, every step of the way, there is someone there who can help them.
How do you also encourage students to kind of take ownership themselves in their individual wellness journey, especially in a way that feels kind of relevant to them and stigma-free?
That's really, I'm glad that you bring this up because this is the best example of partnership. Over many years, we've partnered with student leaders across all 4 undergraduate schools,
Sure.
Just to limit the scope of the discussion. And we've been working very, very hard to create a culture where asking for help is a sign of strength. So I mentioned this just now in conversation with parents and their students, but we've also brought the conversation campus-wide with student leaders. They can help define the culture, and we will take the culture to where they want it to be. It needs to come from them, right? It needs to be from students and to students, and we're there to support them. We can guide them along the way, because we've been through this before, and we can offer perspective and insight. That's why the campaigns that we have, like Eye Care I mentioned, but we also have I Share, which is to normalize sharing or talking about feelings, safety, and other feelings. And we also very recently created Be Aware. We've brought the Eye Care knowledge set and toolkit, if you will, online, and we've integrated it through Canvas, which is our online learning management system, so that you don't have to attend an eye care session. You can do this on your own through Canvas, and it's more easily accessible. We want as many people to be part of this safety net of the community of care we're trying to create. We want the help-seeking behavior to be reinforced and promoted by students as opposed to by the institution. We need to do this together and not exclusively. That, I think, is the best way to think about it. Before we close, because I think we're about time, what's the single most important thing families can do to help their students feel safe, confident, and cared for?
That's a great question. I would say, 1, share the information they've just learned on this webinar.
If we do this right, the students will be like, yeah, I heard about this already.
Because as you know, Benoit and I will both have time with your students at NSO. And so we do one of the only mandatory sessions at NSO and called Safe Living. And so they're going to hear a lot about those resources from our team and other students there as well. You know, I would encourage them To one, program this number into their cell phones, which we will tell them at NSO, 215-573-3333. I'd also make sure that they've signed up for all the other safety resources, the Penn Guardian app that we talked about, making sure that the information is in Path at Penn for the UPenn alerts. But I think I'd really kind of emphasize themes that are true for both of our units. We talk about it as empowerment. You talk about it as showing strength. And I encourage them to show the strength to feel empowered, to ask for help when they need it, and know that there is this whole network and community of care to help them navigate it when they do. So we covered a lot of topics today.
We did.
I think we hit a lot on wellness and safety, but I think we hit beyond that. I think the main themes that we would probably have for you is that student success is about more than academics when you're here at Penn, and that we're invested in your students' success. It's about belonging, it's about resilience, it's about health, and it's about peace of mind, right? Doing what makes you feel safe. Both for our students and for you as their families. So whether it's 24/7 security and emergency response, to self-defense and empowerment, to digital safety, just know that my team, the public safety team, is here to ensure that your student is safe in every sense of the word. And we're going to help them navigate this new world at Penn when they arrive.
And I think that from the wellness team, we recognize that well-being is the underpinning to academic success, which is the ultimate goal here. We offer peer wellness coaching, group therapy, health education. We offer public health guidance, access to medical and counseling services as part of the cost of attendance. Whether a student is navigating a flu or feeling lonely, we meet them where they are to support them. We have the resources.
Yeah. If there's one takeaway, I think it's this, that your student is never alone here at Penn. We're here for them, and we're here for you. You can reach out to our offices as well if you have questions about the resources available, and we'll be here with you and them every step of the way.
Thank you again for spending this time with us. We hope this reassures you to know how seriously we take your students' well-being and safety. We look forward to working with you in supporting our success. Thank you and good luck.
Thanks, Benoit. Good conversation.
This was fun.
Good to see you.
This was fun.
All right, thank you, Kathleen and Dr. Dubé, and thank you to all of our moderators for helping facilitate today's discussion. We also want to thank you, all of our parents and family members who joined us today, and for you to submitting such thoughtful questions. And as a reminder, a recording of today's session will be posted on NSOEI's website, specifically on the Penn Parents and Families webpage. This is the second of our 4 virtual orientation sessions being offered for Penn Parents and Families this summer. We encourage you to join us for our upcoming programs on academic support and community standard, and also for starting strong, preparing for living, dining, and thriving at Penn. You can find information about these sessions, in-person new student orientation programs, and the Thrive at Penn online module on the Penn Parents and Families webpage as well. If you have any other questions involving personal or student-specific situations, please contact the Wellness at Penn and the Division of Public Safety directly. You can find their contact information on this page. If you have any general questions about new student orientations, please feel free to contact our office at provost-nso-ai@pobox.upenn.edu. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We look forward to welcoming you and your students to campus in August. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we're going to hang here for another 5 more minutes. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A box, and our Q&A moderators will still be here for like 5 more minutes to answer them.